But then we have so many of our own Wuhans in India. Like I was just talking about Ghazipur Murga Mandi, where 10 lakh birds are slaughtered every day, is our very own Wuhan. Maybe Wuhan would be put to shame if somebody goes there.
So, while we're still trying to stay optimistic about the coronavirus pandemic, a new health scare has us worrying. Now, to discuss the recent cases of bird flu in India, because of which thousands of birds have dropped dead across the country, we are in conversation with Gauri Maulekhi, an animal rights activist. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking our time and speaking to me. Ma'am,
Pleasure. Thank you for
I'd
having me.
first like to begin by asking, could you explain what exactly is culling, the method, and how exactly is it taking care of bird flu, especially in India?
Okay, culling is basically killing.
Right,
And when you are destroying a large number of animals, it's easier and sounds a little better to use the term culling, although it basically
right,
means killing them.
right,
Um, Although there is no set procedure
mhm,
in India as yet, OIE are just like for humans there is a body called the World Health Organization. For
right.
animals there's another international body called OIE. They have
Okay,
standards as to how animals need to be culled in cases of any outbreak of zoonotic or pathogenic diseases.
right,
But in India we don't follow that, and we have seen during the lockdown and even now the live birds are being buried alive or
right,
burnt alive,
right.
just you know killed in various kinds of ways. But then sadly in India, even in our slaughterhouses, we follow no norms at all, and a lot of birds right in the heart of Delhi, in the
Mm.
Ghazipur Murga Mandi, the method of killing is really really shady. Like half dead birds would be smashed against the
Yes,
walls, and these are actually birds that are being sent to meat shops for sale as food for mankind. Or people would wear polythene bags in their feet, and they would walk on the carcasses of these birds to squish them and ensure that they've all died. This is food for mankind. As a member of the Delhi State Slaughterhouse Monitoring Committee, we have prepared inspection reports with videos and pictures of all of this and given to
right,
the government. No action, because it's just birds, so killing them
right.
really doesn't offend anybody. And we make it even better by calling it culling. And it sounds a little medical and scientific, while if you look at it, the methods are far from it.
Absolutely. Ma'am, a very common question that is doing the rounds now is that these flus, especially the bird flu, is because of us, it's because of human beings. So can we call it a man-made flu? And if yes, if it is a man-made flu, why are we slaughtering birds?
So it's much easier and cheaper to kill the
Mm.
birds rather than keep them and treat them.
Right.
So most pandemics we have known for the past 5 pandemics that have happened, they've all
Mm.
originated from animals. The viruses and bacteria jumped species. Even coronavirus is said to have
Mm.
originated from the wet markets of
Yes.
Wuhan. But then we have so many of our own Wuhans in India. Like I was just talking about Ghazipur Murga Mandi, where 10 lakh birds are slaughtered every day, is our very own Wuhan. Maybe Wuhan would be put to shame if somebody goes there.
Absolutely.
So these are creations of people. When we breed large number of animals
Mm.
in confined areas, when we give them very targeted production oriented feed,
Mm.
when we give them non therapeutic antibiotics throughout their lives,
Yes.
just in order to keep them alive,
Mm.
or serve as growth hormones. Basically, we are creating the super bug which will come back and bite us. And these,
Right.
for instance, coronavirus or any other, Ebola or the swine flu, bird flu, these are all forms of the superbug. It will keep getting worse from here.
Right.
In any case, the planet is suffering from this huge human population. Then we are becoming more and more maintenance intensive, as in a huge number of livestock, the industrial animal agriculture, as we call it.
Right.
Rather than keeping a sustainable plant based diet,
Mm.
we are moving towards a heavy meat diet, which is methane intensive, which is requires a lot of water, requires a lot of resources, and we are cramming animals of various species
Right.
together in places which are difficult to clean, difficult to maintain, and nobody's checking these animals. The saddest part is that for the past 3 years, we had been saying, check the animals that are coming into at least Delhi, the
Right.
capital of the country.
Hmm.
But there's no check balance whatsoever, and we just wait for the volcano to erupt, and then we start doing some, or at least appear to do some damage control.
Right.
But it's too late by then, and a few lives are lost. Even now, there is an attempt, every attempt to make, um, you know, sort of put the damage behind a curtain by
Right.
calling the avian influenza as highly pathogenic.
Right.
Basically, what it means is that it's zoonotic. But
Yes.
if you say zoonotic, then the poultry industry gets after you. So the
Yes.
government is also sort of, um, you know, playing by the rules of the poultry industry, saying that, oh, it's highly pathogenic. But the what it means is that people working in such proximity of birds, which is why, I mean, whoever goes for culling, you'd see them on TV, they're all wearing PPEs. Why
Yes.
would they
Yes.
wear PPEs if they are not likely to catch the virus? And if you can catch a virus from a bird, that is called zoonotic. That is the definition of zoonotic. But the government is
Absolutely.
shying from saying that because the poultry industry would be at a loss. In fact, letters are circulating from the government of India to states saying that, oh, cooked meat, if you cook it well,
Yes.
then meat is safe.
Yes.
Like, what is the definition of well? If I fall ill after having chicken, then perhaps they'd say, I didn't cook it nicely enough.
Yeah.
So, like, we're jeopardizing the country for the profit of a few.
Absolutely. What I'd also like to understand, ma'am, is culling a very common practice, not just in this country but elsewhere? And what exactly is the alternative? If not culling, then what?
Okay, so only if we rear them and house animals
Hmm.
in clean environments, and that too in proper segregated
Hmm.
environments,
Hmm.
then if one lot falls sick, they
Hmm.
would not be able to transmit the disease very quickly to the entire lot. Here,
Right.
if you go to an egg laying farm, you would see an egg laying farm maybe in Haryana or say Namakkal in Tamil Nadu. You'd find one farm with like 20 lakh birds or
Hmm.
25 lakh
Hmm.
birds. So imagine the speed at which the virus can be transmitted from one bird to another,
Hmm. Hmm.
because we keep them in such confined proximities. We give them no chance to even walk 2 steps in their entire lifetimes.
Hmm.
This is aside from that, but a egg-laying hen cannot walk 2 steps in its entire life and is kept on a space which is less than an A4 size paper space for its entire life of 2 years.
Right.
These are the birds that are most susceptible to catch these viruses. It's
Hmm.
much cheaper to kill them
Hmm.
for profit reasons, not for any other humane reason or whatsoever,
True.
for
True.
profit. Much cheaper to kill them than to keep them and treat them and feed them while they are not producing commercially
Hmm.
while they're sick.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it makes no sense. It doesn't make any commercial sense to treat them. While if people get COVID, they can all go to hospitals. If a
Exactly.
bird gets
Yes.
a pathogen, then it just loses its life. Now, there are enough and more judgments from Supreme Court and several other courts to say
Hmm.
that there is a certain right to life for even animals and some dignity,
Hmm.
but we don't shy away from burying them alive, which is, I think, it puts humanity to shame.
Absolutely.
The alternative would be to keep animals in segregated
Hmm.
small batches,
Hmm.
not keep like 1,500 buffaloes in one shed and
Hmm.
then milk them dry. Or because if one gets foot and mouth or one gets tuberculosis, everybody would get
Everybody
it.
gets it.
Hmm?
Very true.
So it's much better to, over the years, what India has done is, as a policy, we have promoted the large farmers.
Hmm.
And just the traditional
mm,
small backyard farmers do not get incentivized by state governments or
mm,
central government.
mm,
A better policy for the government would be to incentivize the small farming,
mm,
small animal
mm.
holdings,
Right.
rather than the large holdings, which are disease time bombs.
Yes.
And then you're left with just one option. If he were to, for instance, a namakal, if a poultry farmer with 25 lakh birds and they fall sick,
Mm,
he would go bankrupt trying to treat them,
exactly.
so there's no choice at the end of it. It would be much nicer if we have small backyard poultry farms
Mm,
where if one lot gets sick, there is enough space and distance between lots
yes.
that even treatment would be possible.
Absolutely. Ma'am, could you also elaborate on the side effects or the adverse effects of such flus or infections on the biodiversity?
Um, Now we have in India just systemically discouraged all studies that lead to environmental impact of intensive animal agriculture.
Hmm.
Basically, it has huge amount of environmental impact. The use of antibiotics, the use of all kinds of growth hormones, the very targeted feed that we give actually lowers the immunity of the bird and gives rise to several pathogens.
Hmm.
Even influenza came to the fore and is recognized today because when in 2012 there was a outbreak in China.
Hmm.
60% of the people who got avian influenza died. That
Yes.
is why we are so scared of it today in
Hmm.
2021.
Hmm. Hmm.
But there are several other pathogens that these animals carry when they are kept in confinement, extreme confinement. Just if I may give a comparison
Hmm.
to how many Jews died in concentration camps during the
Hmm.
Holocaust, not because of anything else, but of diseases that they transmitted to each other.
Yes.
So basically, so many pathogens jump species, they go into wild animals, and we have so many of these intensive animal holdings on the fringes of forests. We have them, uh, inside cities, urban areas where they are mingling with the human population and all of that. So uh, there's just not enough study done in India to for the government to be able to take any concrete action, and I believe there's a design to it.
Hmm.
Because if you find out, then you'll have to do something about it. Might as well have a biased silence on it, so that like even now there's a sort of silence on the
Hmm.
zoonosis
Yes.
part of this strain, and in fact the government is promoting the chicken and egg consumption, which
Hmm.
I think is very responsible from a public health point of view.
Absolutely. Ma'am, as you mentioned about immunity, I remember when this entire coronavirus outbreak happened in the country, as Indians, we were very proud of the fact that we have, unhygienic conditions because we thought that's what is building our immunity against viruses. Now, what exactly does those, hygienic conditions play a role when it comes to bird flus or other viruses that attack our livestock or, birds, animals, whatever it is? How is that
Yeah.
responsible?
So if it is a naturally occurring
Hmm.
species, then nature provides you with enough and more weapons, inside your system to help you fight off most of the disease-causing bacteria, virus,
Hmm.
and only a
Hmm.
few of them make you sick.
Hmm.
But the egg-laying hens and the broiler hens, the two kinds of hens that are available in the market commercially today for meat
Right.
and eggs, that's broiler and egg-laying hens.
Hmm.
These two are not naturally occurring species.
Exactly.
They have been the naturally occurring species, the red jungle fowl,
Hmm.
which lays about 40 eggs in a year,
Hmm.
gains adulthood like at 5 months or six
Hmm.
months of
Hmm.
age. Puberty comes even later.
Hmm.
But here we have selected these birds over centuries, and developed two distinct strains by mating the high yielding variety with the high yielding variety,
Hmm.
or mating the ones that are putting on a lot of weight with similar ones. And we've got broiler which puts on weight like crazy and is quickly, large enough in size for
Hmm.
slaughter,
Hmm.
and egg laying hens which instead of 40
Hmm.
eggs in a year
Hmm.
lays an egg a day. That
Right.
is 360 eggs
Right.
almost every year. So these are two very unhealthy, massively trade
Hmm.
selected varieties of poultry, which are not naturally occurring. Hence, they have floodgates opened
Hmm.
for all kinds of diseases to
Hmm.
come in. If you keep a broiler, if you buy a live broiler hen
Hmm.
from the market, if you just keep it in the house and feed it for a while, in 15 days you will know that this I mean, you will understand that how unnatural the bird is.
Yes.
While it is actually just a chick of 25 days. It has so much weight. It is forever hungry.
Hmm.
Its heart and its bones are not growing commensurate to its muscle.
Hmm.
So it just suffers from gangrenous fractures, suffers from heart ailments,
Hmm.
suffers from so many diseases.
Hmm.
So basically, these animals, were they naturally occurring, they would not have been susceptible to so many viruses so quickly. But since they are hugely manipulated,
Hmm.
they are very, very vulnerable to these
Hmm.
viruses. Like,
Absolutely.
I hope you got the point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ma'am, when this entire bird flu conversation began, what I personally noticed was we as, citizens or even the government for that matter, was looking at this bird flu more from the consumption point of view. So we had a lot of articles, a lot of studies, a lot of comments by experts saying that whether you should eat chicken, whether you should consume egg, or most, on those lines. But what we're not focusing on was that at the end of the day, killing birds, slaughtering them, and not just looking at them as part of our diet was where we actually lost the entire battle. So do you think there needs to be a change in perception when you look at these viruses?
Correct. And in fact, the saddest part was that when I learned that a lot of farmers were actually getting their birds culled
Yeah,
because they wanted to claim the insurance money, because their
exactly.
birds were healthy,
Hmm.
there was no market, there was nobody to buy them. So
Hmm.
they just wanted it better to declare them as flu birds and
Yes.
have them culled so that they can get their money.
Hmm.
Now, making the large scale killing or this genocide of birds
Hmm.
so easy is actually a very irresponsible and a regressive act, and it goes
Hmm.
against the ethics of the constitution, however much it may be in immediate or short term public health necessity.
Hmm.
But I think at the same time, while it is done, the governments of so many decades should
Hmm.
also have thought of some long
Yes.
term policies to prevent this situation, because this is not the first time this has happened. It
Hmm.
happens every year. We have outbreaks and people die every year. But
Absolutely.
still, the governments, through, I mean, I'm not naming any particular government, but
Hmm.
every single government plays to the vote banks and allows and encourages large amounts of these animals to be procreated unnaturally and kept in intensive confinements.
Hmm.
That I think needs to change.
Hmm.
And in 2021, we should not now start looking at animals as mere utilitarian
Yes.
commodities, as if they can be just put in the trash bin anytime we don't need them. There has to be some conscience within
Absolutely.
people and the government. Surely these are short term methods, but they also
Hmm.
can be taken responsibly,
Hmm. Hmm.
can
Hmm.
be culled humanely. But we, these past few months, have not seen one instance of humane
Hmm.
culling.
Hmm. Ma'am, now that there are rising cases of bird flu across the country, across different states, a lot of thousands of birds have died. What do you think the government should do? And what are the lessons that we've drawn right from the cases that we saw in the past to now? What do you think the government should do to tackle this now?
the Supreme Court in 2016 had ruled that battery cages are cruel per se. That's where the maximum intensive confinement happens, and diseases spread very, very quickly in such confinement. So, Supreme Court in 2016 asked for rules to be made, uh, notified by the Government of India. The Law Commission of India had come up with a report where they even drafted the rules for the Government of India for both broilers and egg-laying hens, also citing the fact that these are the species that are getting affected by zoonotic pathogens repeatedly, and their housing system needs to change in the country. Then after that, the High Court of Delhi gave the same instructions to the Government of India. I think it is time now. It's been 5 years. The Government of India has been sitting on it. However, instructions have gone to all the states that no new battery cages have to come up, and the old ones will perhaps be phased out at some point. But this is the time that we should just change the housing systems of animals, keeping in mind the spread of zoonosis, so that next time it would not require us to kill lakhs of them, and have no preventive measures, like for instance in the zoo, or maybe in urban areas. There should not be birds around them, or even in urban areas there are places where you would not even imagine that there's a poultry farm, because it would have such huge walls around it, but then you'd find 15 lakh birds inside or something. So these are ticking time bombs, and I think it's time to dismantle them. The housing has to be corrected. It has to be made scientific. It has to be made in a way damage control can be done swiftly, if at all pathogen is found, and there's no need to cull a large number of birds, also causing basically a huge loss to some of the poultry farmers. So it would be in the benefit of the birds and the benefit of the farmer that we change the housing system. There will be a first time cost. It would require some implementation cost, but it would save a lot of lives for decades to come.
Very true. Very true, ma'am. I think you've made some very important points, and I think what I could gather from this was the first step towards eradicating this entire problem would be to develop a sensitive and a humane approach. As you mentioned, not just treat them as commodities or as part of our diet. And I'd again like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to me.
Thank you so much. It's always nice to talk to you.